Girl's heartfelt whisper about her dad. Uncovered inspiring hidden truth that changed everything. Emma had always felt like a ghost, flitting around the edges of her father's life, his world dominated by the clang of metal and the smell of motor oil. At 16, she floated through her small Midwestern town, her dreams of artistry stifled by the towering ambitions of her father, a mechanic known for his hard work and unyielding dedication. But when a crushing silence filled the air after his unexpected death, she stumbled into an old leather journal beneath the garage floorboards, its pages yellowed and frayed. Each letter addressed to her unfurled a mosaic of her father's unspoken fears. He never picked up that paintbrush he held so tightly to his heart, burying his dreams under the weight of providing for her. The revelations twisted inside her. A sudden swell of anger and sadness crashed against the shores of her guilt. Could she paint without feeling like a thief, robbing her father's silent sacrifices? As she served plates of greasy hamburgers and coffee at the diner to pull in extra cash, each shift blended into the next, punctuated only by fleeting moments of hopeful creation in the silence of her room. Scratching out sketches, she wrestled with the shadows of obligation. Was this path truly hers, or a betrayal of a man who had given everything? The turning point came swiftly, a community art show. Pregnant with emotion, she poured her heart into her submissions, visions erupting across canvas. But when a local art dealer scoffed dismissively, her heart crumbled. Not marketable enough. Those words echoed, igniting flames of defiance within. To her, the implication was clear. Her artistry was deemed invalid, her father's hidden treasures diminished. How could she reconcile her passion and honor his legacy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously. It makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Emma stood at a crossroads, fear and determination twisting within her. Her father's time-worn paintings whispered to her, memories of laughter and late nights spent watching him paint, oil filling the air as he painstakingly captured life's essence. Gathering those pieces, they arrived in her mind as echoes of who he was, who he sought to be, contrasted starkly against the judgmental whispers of the town's elite. She felt the weight of their condescension. How would they regard her father's humble works, pieces untouched for so long? What began as a tribute morphed into a test of identity. As she organized a pop-up gallery, thrumming excitement warred with dread. Would the community see value in both her voice and her father's long-hidden legacy? Each brushstroke was a rebellion, a declaration that art transcends expectation and class. The night before the opening, staring at her completed works, Emma's heart raced in a flurry of questions. In this moment of creativity and despair, she was driven by a single thought. What if it all falls flat? The dawn promised possibility, but uncertainty twisted the pit of her stomach, amplifying the tension of the moment. There lay everything she hoped for: acceptance, freedom, and the weight of inheritance pressed like storm clouds over her mind, thick with potential despair. Would this be the moment they finally saw her? As the sun crested the horizon, casting a soft glow across her canvases, Emma felt a surge of conflicting emotions. The pop-up gallery loomed, a testament to both her father's dreams and her own aspirations. Each corner of her room carried a whisper of encouragement and doubt. She forced herself to breathe, pushing away thoughts that threatened to engulf her. Standing before her completed paintings, she felt the rigid tension in her muscles, like a coiled spring ready to snap. The vibrant colors she'd carefully selected reflected fragments of her father's spirit, yet her own identity seemed lost within the canvas. She needed to break free, to echo the essence of her father without slipping into mere imitation. It was now or never. Underneath that canopy of vibrant hues, Emma sensed a nagging doubt. Was she merely recanting her father's story? The notion that her art was merely a homage instead of self-expression clawed at her confidence. The stark realization that every brushstroke could either embrace or devour her renewed her anxiety. She thought of his journal, those passages steeped in regret, and she feared that by painting, she might relive that regret. But the need to honor him could not continue to mute her voice. When the clock struck 6, she stood amidst her creations, feeling as much a part of them as they were of her. Each piece was a silent testament, a bridge between her father's unfulfilled dreams and her burgeoning path. As guests trickled in, the chatter of voices blurred into a cacophony that both soothed and unsettled her. Was there a place for her within this space being carved by her father's legacy and her new vision? Then came the moment that she had been anxious about all week, the arrival of the art dealer who had criticized her work before. Would he carry the same scorn, or could he acknowledge the growth behind the brush? The swirling knot in her stomach tightened painfully as he approached, his expression inscrutable. "Emma," he called out, leaving her stunned. He surveyed her paintings carefully, taking in the raw emotion vibrating beneath the layers of paint. His gaze lingered over a particular piece first, one she had almost discarded, uncertain of its worth. "This one speaks," he declared, his voice an unexpected combination of surprise and respect. In that moment, something inside her shifted. A flicker of validation ignited deep within her core. In the hours that followed, Emma navigated through the ebb and flow of conversations, absorbing the mixed responses of her guests. Some admired her audacity, while others whispered in judgment, still confined by the narrow expectations of success. With each compliment, she felt a new sense of empowerment, her identity as an artist beginning to take shape outside of her father's shadow. Yet doubt still loomed. What if the whispers of obscurity drowned out the applause? As the evening dragged on, Emma found herself speaking to a woman who, like her, had struggled against familial expectations. "You know, every masterpiece was once a discarded draft," the woman confided, her eyes glinting with understanding. "Art mirrors the messy journey of our hearts. It's not about perfection, it's about authenticity." Those words resonated deeply. Emma had been so consumed with validation that she had neglected to embrace vulnerability in her artistry. In this raw, emotional space, she discovered the very thing that made her art shine. Her own scars intertwined with her father's untold stories. As the night drew to a close, she lingered over the empty gallery. Her mind buzzed with newfound determination and blurry visions of future possibilities. Each brushstroke had been a small rebellion, a statement that she was more than the sum of her father's sacrifices. She was a creator in her own right. With a heart ignited by purpose, Emma turned to the door, a resolve swelling within her. The winds of change were beginning to whisper promises of her own artistic truth. But just as she reached for the door, a shadow fell across the threshold. "You think you can just rewrite his story?" came a voice, sharp and unyielding. It was the very embodiment of her fears. Emma's heart raced. The time had come to confront not just the antagonist before her, but the doubt that had haunted her for far too long. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she turned, confronted by the familiar face that had been a constant specter throughout her artistic journey. Nathan, her father's former assistant, stood there, arms crossed and eyebrows knitted together in disapproval. His presence was a sudden chill in the warmth of her newfound confidence. "You think you can just rewrite his story?" he repeated, his voice saturated with contempt, as if her works were nothing more than a betrayal. The echo of his accusation bounced off the walls, amplifying her insecurities. Part of her wanted to recoil, to retreat into the defensive shell she had worn for years. But another part of her, the part that had begun to claim her voice, rebelled against the notion that someone else could dictate the validity of her artistic expression. "He took his own life, Nathan," she retorted, her voice steady despite the turmoil churning within. You know nothing of the man behind these paintings. If I'm rewriting anything, it's to add layers he couldn't reveal." Nathan flinched as if she had struck him, but she pressed on, emboldened by the magnitude of her truth. "This isn't a mere homage. It's a reflection of my journey, my struggle. Maybe you're the one still living in his shadow." The silence that draped over them was heavy, as if the air had thickened with the weight of her words. For a moment, she expected him to retreat, to acknowledge the fire she had ignited in herself. But instead, his intensity escalated. "Do you really think you can just work through your daddy issues on canvas? You're risking everything, your credibility, your future, just to carve your name out of his legacy." In that moment, Emma felt a crack fracture her renewed confidence, yet within it was the undeniable flicker of self-awareness. He was right about one thing. Her emotions had been tangled with her father's legacy. But where Nathan saw danger, she saw opportunity. The fear that radiated through her veins transformed, revealing the duality of creation and devastation. "What if it's not about carving my name out, but rather about acknowledging that every story has facets?" she challenged. "I'm not asking you to validate my work. I'm learning to validate myself." His glare pierced her, but she saw uncertainty flicker across his features. Perhaps her confrontation was causing a rift in his steadfast convictions, even if only just a little. It struck her then. His doubt mirrored her own, stemming from the same place of fear, the belief that their existence or worth was intricately tied to someone else's legacy. A flicker of courage ignited within Emma. With each exchange of words, she began to dissect the layers of Nathan's accusations. They weren't just his words. They were her own reflections in the mirror of hesitation. Realization dawned. She must confront the doubt within her. What if instead of fearing failure, we embrace the vulnerability it brings? She pressed, not as a challenge to Nathan, but as a reflection of her own inner battle. What if we acknowledge that our art tells our stories, even if it means unpacking the weight of unresolved emotions? His eyes softened momentarily, and Emma seized the opportunity. "We're all writing our narratives, Nathan. I refuse to allow my father's unsung notes dim my palette. I owe it to myself, to him, to paint boldly, as I see fit." When Nathan turned away, uncertain but contemplative, Emma knew she had begun to carve her path. The shadows of doubt that once danced threateningly around her began to dissipate. She was not merely a child of her father anymore, nor was she an empty vessel echoing his spirit. Stepping through the door with newfound strength, Emma felt the sunlight warm her face, invigorating her spirit. Her heart swelled with determination, yet the haunting question lingered. In her quest for authenticity, would the world welcome her voice, or would it reinforce the echoes of heritage that threatened to confine her? As she walked away from the gallery, an unforeseen realization struck her. The art she created would reflect not just her pain, but also her triumphs over it. The city's skyline loomed in the distance, a tangible representation of her new journey. But just then, a text buzzed from her phone, an unknown number. Hesitating, she opened the message. It read simply, "I know why you painted that piece. Meet me tomorrow if you want to hear more." Who could it be? And what did they know? Emma's heart raced again, but this time with curiosity laced with trepidation. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but she was ready to confront whatever awaited her. Emma stared at her phone, the words blurring into a cacophony of anxiety and intrigue. A knot twisted in her stomach. Who was this mysterious sender, and what could they possibly reveal about her father's legacy? She gripped her phone tightly, contemplating her options. Meeting the stranger felt like a risk, but perhaps it was an opportunity to unearth truth she had long buried. The following morning, the city was alive with vibrant energy, each street echoing with potential and ambition. Emma dressed deliberately, choosing a simple white blouse that contrasted starkly with her most cherished black jeans. a reflection of her duality, the desire for clarity shadowed by lingering darkness. As she applied a light touch of lipstick, she caught her own reflection, searching for the girl who wanted to stand tall in her father's absence. Emma arrived at the cafe, the smell of freshly brewed coffee enveloping her in an invigorating embrace. She scanned the room, acutely aware of her racing heart. Could this be a step toward understanding her father, or would it pull her further into the chaos of unresolved emotions? As she settled into a corner, her hands fidgeting with the edge of the table, the weight of her mission settled upon her like an anchor. Minutes felt like hours, until she spotted a figure approaching. A man in his late 30s, well-dressed, yet disarmingly casual. Confidence radiated from him, but beneath it, something about his demeanor suggested he was no stranger to pain. He slid into the seat across from Emma without preamble. "Emma, right? I'm Alex," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "Hi," she replied, a slight tremor in her voice. "I know what you're doing with your art," he began, his eyes meeting hers with a directness that made her slightly uncomfortable. "I've seen your work online, and I felt something profound in it. Your father's influence is unmistakable, but you're breathing new life into it." Emma felt a surge of validation from his words, but also a wave of tension. "How do you know about my father's influence? I was his student at the last university he taught at. I was captivated by his work, but I also witnessed the demons he fought. Much of what you paint reflects the struggle he faced, and it's beautiful." His acknowledgement dug deeper than she anticipated. Just as she had begun to step out of her father's shadow, here was someone tying her back to that legacy again. But isn't it a risk? What if I fail to honor him the way he deserved? "Art is subjective, Emma. It's not just about honoring. It's about understanding the layers of pain, of joy, of humanity," he replied, leaning closer. "Your father struggled with his emotions. This journey can be a catharsis for both of you." His words struck a tender chord within her. It was a different perspective, one that hinted at her own hidden struggles and the messy beauty of their shared legacy. Yet, a pressing question nagged at her. "But why contact me? What do you really know about him? About me?" Alex sighed, the weight of unarticulated emotions thickening the air. "Because I've seen the way you carry his essence through your art, and I know the truth of what he faced, more than you might expect. You owe it to yourself to confront it." Emma's pulse quickened, her body vibrating with both fear and anticipation. The conversation was unraveling into something profound. Yet what was this truth that teetered on the brink of revelation? "What truth?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The intensity in his gaze deepened, and for a fragile moment, it felt as if they shared a secret only the two of them could understand. The one that could change your perception of him, and yourself. Emma swallowed hard, painfully aware that each word from Alex could lead her closer to a pivotal moment. Would she confront the legacy left behind, or shield herself from facing the shadows of her father's past? The realization hit her. Stepping into this conversation demanded vulnerability she had yet to fully embrace. She was already at the edge of her emotional cliff. Now she had to decide whether to leap into clarity or retreat to safety. Each path brimmed with potential, and the choice was hers alone to make. As uncertainty lingered in the air, Emma felt her resolve hardening. It was time to confront the truth that lay beyond the shadows of the past, not just for her father, but for herself. The question remained, would she have the strength to face what Alex had to say? And would it shatter or solidify the foundation of her identity as an artist? The room fell into a tense silence, thick with meaning, as Alex leaned in closer, ready to uncover what lay beneath the surface. Emma's breath hitched as she prepared for Alex's next words, the air around them heavy with unspoken tension. His steady gaze was a mirror reflecting her own fears and aspirations, and she felt oddly vulnerable, poised on the edge of revelation. "Your father," he began slowly, choosing his words with precision. He was more than just an artist. He was a man who grappled with his demons, those we often camouflage in final strokes or subtle hues. In your artwork, I see not only his influence but also a part of your struggle. We're defined by how we embrace our pain, are we not? A moment of stark silence enveloped them. Emma's heart raced as truth wrestled with denial. She'd always adored her father's work, but had sidelined his own emotional battles. Could it be that his legacy was one of hidden chaos, not simply brilliance? Mired in doubt, she questioned, "What do you mean by struggle?" Alex leaned back slightly, scanning her countenance. The darkness that shrouded his art was mirrored in his life. There were times in his career when he felt utterly lost. He battled self-doubt, something you too have confessed to managing. This vulnerability, it resonates in your layers of paint. So, you're saying I'm just amplifying his failures? The words rang out harsher than she intended. No, not at all. He softened his tone, aiming for connection. I'm saying that your experiences inform your art, giving it a pulse, an authenticity. Rather than allowing the weight of his struggles to intimidate you, embrace them. They're a foundation on which to build your voice. The battle itself can be a catalyst for creativity. His perspective ignited something in Emma. A spark of determination intertwined with anxiety. She could feel her identity crystallizing, yet the fear of failing hovered above her like a storm cloud. But if I embrace that darkness, what will it reveal about me? What if I can't bear it? That's where the beauty lies, Alex replied, his voice steady. The act of creation is cathartic. It can help you confront your own fears, shaping how you view art, yourself, and your father's legacy. What you uncover could redefine your relationship with both your past and your future. Emma's mind raced. A hidden truth, a path untraveled, lay before her, pulling at her curiosity and trepidation. Alex's faith in her ability to unearth and reconstruct her understanding of art and emotion clashed with her own self-doubt, driving her to confront both her father's vulnerabilities and her fears. I've fostered this shield around myself for so long, she admitted, her voice barely rising above a whisper. To delve into my father's emotional turmoil might mean unwinding my own insecurities. But if his struggles entwine with my artwork, how do I keep my own voice distinct? You don't, Alex asserted, leaning in. What you choose to express and how you do it will sound your own authentic note, even among his lingering echoes. This journey is yours, rediscovering not just him, but who you want to become, and that can lead to your most honest and impactful creations. The weight of his encouragement felt like a challenge, igniting something deep within her. Emma envisioned herself, brush in hand, with paint spiraling off the canvas, woven with her struggles alongside her father's. But she had to know more first. She needed the truth, the unvarnished reality of her father's struggles, not just the filtered narrative she'd built in her mind. What do you know that I don't? She pressed, urgency now coloring her voice. Your father and I would meet for beer sometimes, and there were stories he shared, painful memories of loss, regret, moments of raw honesty about how he fought his darkness. Some of those stories might be the key to understanding his journey fully. And yours. Emma felt a knot of anxiety twist in her stomach. This was it. Here lay the path leading to unearthing the past alongside her father's legacy, and with it, her own voice as an artist. But did she dare to step into the truth? Are you willing to hear those stories? Alex asked, his quiet intensity drawing her in, and Emma found herself at a crossroads between fear and revelation. Yes, she replied, the decision to face the shadows wrapping around her heart like a cloak of fortitude. But as her determination settled in, a new, unsettling thought loomed. What would those truths ultimately unveil? And how might they reshape the very foundation of her identity? With her heart pounding, she prepared to confront the shadows, Recognizing that clarity often dwells just out of reach, Emma was ready for the next step, propelled by the allure of discovery. Yet a question lingered in the air. Would the revelations empower her, or pull her deeper into the chaos she feared? Emma sat across from Alex, the dim overhead light casting soft shadows that danced around them. A palpable tension filled the air as she prepared for the cascade of revelations waiting to spill forth. The warmth of her desire for understanding clashed against the chill of uncertainty creeping up her spine. Alex's attentive gaze held her anchored. He was both a guide and an intruder into the depths she had long tried to avoid. "Let's begin with the first time your father felt lost," Alex said carefully, leaning in. He had just returned from a trip abroad. The colors he saw, vibrant and striking, left their mark on him. But instead of inspiration, he found himself paralyzed, grappling with the overwhelming reality that his work didn't reflect the beauty he witnessed. He felt like a fraud, unable to translate those experiences onto the canvas. Sound familiar? Emma's pulse quickened. She thought of her recent pieces, the way she'd numbed her emotions rather than convey them. Was this cycle an inherited trait? "I feel that every day," she admitted quietly, a sense of vulnerability creeping in. "The expectation that I should live up to his legacy while feeling like an imposter inhibits me." "Your authenticity is what doesn't just fit into a legacy. It reshapes it," he insisted. When your father discussed his struggles, it was not to lament his failures, but to inspire resilience, to face and articulate the pain directly. This is how he discovered freedom through art. Emma leaned back, arms wrapping around herself as though providing a buffer against the weight of his words. She realized the shadows she had obscured, her own battles with self-acceptance and expectations, mirrored the struggles of the artist she revered. With each story Alex shared, she began to identify parallels in her own journey. When he was at his lowest, Alex recounted, he once painted for 3 weeks straight, sometimes working through days without sleep. But instead of creating the masterpiece he envisioned, he splashed chaotic strokes across the canvas. He told me it was a release, a confrontation with his fears of inadequacy. Emma swallowed hard. Had she also been avoiding a cathartic release? She considered the times she'd skirted around her own feelings, opting instead for safer themes in her work, rather than delving into the storm within. "Do you really think I could begin to confront my struggles the way he did?" she asked, tentatively exploring the potential for her own transformation. "Absolutely. You don't need to copy his style," Alex reassured her. "It's about tapping into your emotions like an open vein, translating that into your unique voice. You're sheltered by doubt. But what if you dared to strip that away?" A flicker of courage sparked within her. "What if I fail?" she challenged, the familiar anxiety surfacing again. "Failing is part of the process," he replied with conviction. "Embracing failure can lead to profound discoveries, deepening your understanding of both art and yourself. Will you let that fear stop you?" A rush of clarity washed over Emma. The thoughts she once regarded as fears shaped her growth, indicating her potential for strength. She nodded, a newfound determination solidifying in her chest. "I want to transform this fear into something real." As she spoke, a flood of inspiration surged, intertwining with thoughts of untapped creativity swirling in her mind. Each tale Alex shared unveiled layers she hadn't anticipated existing within herself. She felt less like her father's shadow, and more like a continuum, his artistry forming the foundation while her own evolution took flight. "I want to hear everything," Emma announced, both excitement and dread melding in her voice. "I'm ready to face that darkness, to understand what it means for my art and me." Alex smiled, pride glinting in his eyes. "Then let's dig deeper. Not just into his life, but into who you are beneath those layers of uncertainty." As they continued, Emma leaned into this emerging sense of bravery, ready to unravel the chaos that had long lingered within her. She felt unshackled from the chains of expectation, balancing on the precipice of discovery. But as the stories unfolded, the weight of dawn loomed. A new, piercing question arose in her mind. What additional truths awaited? Truths capable of shattering the very fabric she believed defined her notion of self. Emma braced herself for the confrontation ahead, prepared to transform insight into creation, but knowing turbulence was part of the journey. With the first light of dawn creeping through the gaps in the curtains, Emma found herself struggling to rein in her thoughts. The night had woven doubt and determination into a complicated tapestry, a harsh contrast against the serenity of daybreak. As she prepared herself to delve deeper into the history of her father's struggles with Alex, the palpable energy of their previous conversation clung to her, thrumming inside her like the hum of an electric wire. "Let's talk about your childhood memories," Alex prompted, his voice steady and encouraging. "What do you recall when you think about creating art back then?" Emma leaned forward, grasping the edges of her chair, her heart racing. "I remember being alone with the colors, but also feeling the weight of expectations. It was exhilarating and suffocating at the same time. I would go deep into my drawings, but then someone would find them, and the excitement would turn to anxiety." "Your instinct to retreat echoes your father's journey," Alex observed, his gaze unwavering. "What do you think compelled you to hide them?" The question hung in the space between them, and Emma's mind spun with fleeting memories. Being young, vibrant, and filled with untamed passion seemed like another lifetime. "I didn't want anyone to see my flaws. What if they saw me as a fraud, like he did?" Alex nodded, allowing silence to envelop them as she reflected. The spiral of doubt threatened to pull her underwater, but within that whisper of fear lay the inkling of liberation. It was time to confront the mechanisms of shame that shackled her creativity. "I think I chose safe subjects," she mused, recalling the simplistic themes that once filled her canvases. Figures in gentle landscapes or soft animals, the kind of art that could never offend. But it feels like I've been drawing a mask instead of exploring who I am. "That mask is a safe haven, but it doesn't allow for growth," Alex replied. "Your father wore a mask too until he broke through that facade." As Emma absorbed his words, a riptide of conflict surged within her. Questions surged. What if fully embracing her identity meant reshaping everything she held dear? What if it meant tearing apart the comfort she found in her practice? What if I access my raw emotions and it doesn't translate to what I create? She questioned, anxiety creeping back in. What will happen if I don't have the technical prowess he possessed? "Those fears stem from comparison and should be left behind," Alex urged, an edge of intensity threading his tone. "Art is a journey, not a product. You owe nothing to anyone but yourself. Remember, authenticity transcends technique. Allow yourself to bleed onto the canvas." Her breath caught as a flicker of resolve ignited. Alex's words served as a kindling flame to the embers of creativity buried under self-imposed doubt. There was a pull to experience the world through the lens of her vulnerability, to dive into the chaos rather than skirt alongside it. With an unexpected surge of clarity, she recognized the risk wasn't in the failure of the work, but in the refusal to embrace her voice. "I want to confront the heaviness, the chaotic passion," she declared, each word buoyed by growing certainty. "I want to let go of the safe and let the art unfold from my truth." "That's the spirit," Alex replied, the pride evident in his eyes. "But this journey will require you to face even darker shadows, memories that might sting, but will also set you free. Are you prepared for that?" The question hung heavily in the air, filling the space with a potent blend of fear and exhilaration. Emma took a deep breath, her heart pounding with the weight of the challenge ahead. "I'm ready to uncover not just hidden emotions, but hidden truths about myself." As they continued their dialogue, the uneasy anticipation of her forthcoming emotional excavation settled alongside her eagerness to embrace authenticity. Yet, somewhere within that internal shift lay an unshakable feeling. She was on the brink of unveiling something monumental, something that could irrevocably alter not just her art, but her very essence. What happens when I'm confronted with moments that challenge my core beliefs? The weight of that question loomed heavy in her mind, leaving her teetering between excitement and fear of what lay ahead. Emma sensed that somewhere along this path, she would encounter a truth about her past that might reshape her future entirely. Emma sat at her art desk, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating scattered sketches and brushes. Each piece of paper held fragments of her past, haunting echoes of emotions locked away. The timbre of Alex's voice still resonated in her mind, urging her toward a deeper understanding of herself, and she felt the weight of their conversation pressing down on her. With a deep breath, she lifted a blank canvas onto her easel, her heart racing at the thought of embracing this new journey. The fear of inadequacy swirled in her chest, but beneath it lay a flicker of determination. What if the raw emotions she had buried actually held the key to her artistic truth? Dipping her brush into the vibrant green paint, Emma began to create abstract shapes, curves and lines intertwined like the complex web of memories she was now willing to explore. The colors flowed instinctively, mirroring the erratic rhythm of her heartbeat. With every stroke, she battled with her fear of exposure. Was she truly ready to bare her soul and confront the darkness she had masked for so long? As she painted, fragments of her childhood seeped into her thoughts, familiar moments of joy and struggle mingling together. The time her father gifted her a watercolor set, encouraging her not just to paint, but to express herself. But right alongside that happiness was the nagging memory of his criticism, of moments she felt insufficient, like a flickering flame about to be snuffed out. The intensity of those contrasting emotions fueled her brushstrokes. She pictured the chaotic divided nights she spent drawing while trying to please others' expectations. Each brush movement echoed her initial fear of inadequacy, yet also reflected her burgeoning desire to break free and embrace vulnerability. Suddenly, a memory broke through. The time she overheard her father speaking about his own art struggles, confessing to her mother that he felt lost. In that moment, she realized he too had battled his demons, grappling with the oppressive weight of expectations. It was a mirrored soul struggling to breathe under the suffocating sky of judgment. Emma stepped back, her heart racing as she confronted this realization. The secret weight she had carried, the idea that she alone had to bear the burden of creativity, was shattered. Art was not solely about triumphs, but also about the perils of human experience and honesty. The realization was profound. Her father's struggles did not diminish her own experiences. Instead, they created a bridge of understanding between them that had always been absent. Wiping her paint-stained hands on a rag, Emma's mind raced with newfound revelation. Perhaps the very fear that had paralyzed her was the same fear her father faced. Maybe confronting their shadows was what would ultimately set both of them free. With each passing moment, she felt the earlier hesitation begin to dissolve, more with each delicate brushstroke. What if this art takes me to the places I feared most? She considered, her thoughts spiraling into a blend of excitement and trepidation. The challenge loomed before her, a fierce companion eager to test her resolve. Driven by this wave of inspiration, she plunged back into her painting, each stroke more deliberate, channeling her fears and hopes into every hue. The rawness of her emotions transformed the canvas, merging into a powerful representation of inner turmoil and catharsis. But as she worked, a deep-rooted question surfaced again. Was any of this enough? Would unraveling her past really lead to true artistic freedom, or would it only unveil further chaos? With that uncertainty looming, the paintbrush halted mid-air, leaving her in a moment of stillness. Emma felt the walls of her past closing in, whispering haunting doubts. The question flared like fire, tantalizing and terrifying. How far would she go to discover her truth? The answer felt just out of reach, teasing her into the depths of her self-exploration. Determined to confront whatever lay ahead, Emma clasped her brush tightly and braced herself for the emotional examination of her life. She understood now that the journey was only beginning, and the next steps she took were crucial, not just for her art, but for her very identity. What hidden truths awaited her as she released her pen to paper, fully embracing her chaotic passion? The next chapter of her story was about to be written, one that could break the silence of generations past, leading to the confrontation that would finally bring both her and her father's struggles to light. Emma's chest tightened, a catalyst for intuition and fear. She was painted into a corner, forced to confront a tumultuous palette of emotions she had spent years suppressing. The brush laid still, but her mind swirled in turmoil, playing and replaying the buried memories of encounters, of muted struggles, insecurities, and the familiar voice of her father. The canvas stared back, blank, except for the chaotic strokes that echoed her inner fray. She understood now that this was just the jesting surface. She had yet to scratch the layer that could truly reveal her truths. How could art embody the realities she had avoided? She pondered if every stroke he applied had been both a shield and an invitation to see beyond the surface, to delve deeper into realms of honesty that felt as daunting as they were liberating. With a determined yet trembling hand, she grabbed for her sketchbook, pages soaked in ideas that echoed unrelenting voices from her past. Perhaps words, too, held power. She flipped through the pages, each line a distilled fragment of longing that yearned to be articulated beyond strokes and splashes. The thought flashed, could writing provide clarity where painting had faltered? Driven by an impulse, Emma turned to her desk, repurposing the area into a dual creative space. She let the brush kiss the canvas once more, while her other hand retrieved a pen, ready to pour forth the emotions lodged in her throat. Words began to flow like the paint, fragments of memory evolving into reflections that demanded her attention. She began to inscribe the feelings, tracing the interconnected emotions that bound her and her father like invisible thread. Recollections of childhood laughter intermixed with the sounds of disappointed silence filled her mind. The golden glimmers of joy shone, yet they were frequently overshadowed by critical whispers. Describing the gaping fissures of love and expectation unveiled a duality she never wished to confront. Each phrase exposed vulnerabilities that felt raw, yet immobilizing. What if freedom lay in accepting these insecurities? Deciding to confront the specters of her past rather than avoiding them, she recalled her father when victory and failure clashed within him like titans. She recalled nights shared with him, sitting together sketching with quiet intimacy, both afraid to share fears hiding beneath the ink. Their unspoken bond wrapped them like a cocoon, protective yet suffocating. The warmth of nostalgia washed over her, contrasted by the icy grip of her father's disapproval whenever she failed to meet expectations. Those memories unfolded, unveiling a hide-and-seek game within her psyche, asking whether her artistic mistakes mirrored her father's unfulfilled dreams. Realization struck, sharper than a blade. The very art she expressed was a reflection of a deeply human need to connect through shared vulnerabilities, signaling that she wasn't alone in her fear. That revelation ignited a fire within. Instead of paralyzing her, the past became a driving force, compelling her to unveil the narrative involving her and her father, to bring light to the tangled roots that bound them. As she poured each thought onto the pages, she understood that this was no longer solely about her artistic capability. This was about her very identity, a confluence of pain, struggle, and growth interwoven like complex strands of a tapestry. She wouldn't just confront her father through her work. She would anchor herself in her own truth. With renewed strength, she set her brush down momentarily and finished a sentence that recounted a long-forgotten day. And with that act of creation came an exhilarating thrill. Could the next step be to share these revelations? To risk the clarity she had found? The tension of what could follow loomed like the unsummoned dawn, both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. Emma wrestled with the sense of impending vulnerability. The time had come to face the truth. Would exposing her innermost fears be the bridge between her and her father? Could this artistic journey finally illuminate the shadows they had both long navigated? The questions flared within, a rhythmic drumbeat. What confrontations awaited her to bring these hidden truths to the surface? Emma braced herself, ready to awaken not just her art, but also the legacy of the man who had shaped her world. In the stillness of her heart, she recognized the chance to break the silence, a ripple that could resonate far beyond her canvas. In the quiet aftermath of her revelations, Emma stood before her completed artwork, a tapestry of emotions woven across the canvas. This time she could see it clearly. The interplay of her father's struggles and her own had birthed something profound. With each brushstroke, she had honored his legacy, while simultaneously forging a new and autonomous path. The gallery showing had been a triumph, not merely for the acknowledgement of her artistic vision, but for the confidence it instilled within her. No longer was she the shadow of her father's ambitions. She was an artist in her own right, an individual who embraced vulnerability rather than shying away from it. The applause that echoed from the walls rebounded within her spirit, affirming her choice to embrace her truth. Returning to her small town, she found strength in familiar spaces, the diner, the streets where childhood memories lived, but they no longer felt suffocating. No, they now served as a reminder of how far she had come. She had spent years in silence, driftwood on turbulent waters, but now she was anchored to a solid base, her own identity. As Emma walked past the local art shop, she felt an unfamiliar urge. She stepped inside, browsed through the vibrant colors lining the shelves, and collected materials to create. This was not just an act of purchasing supplies. It was a declaration of autonomy. In filling her space with supplies, she was filling her life with possibility, marking the beginning of a new era. No longer bound by her father's unfulfilled dreams or her own fears, she was ready to illuminate her voice proudly. On her way home, she felt the texture of the world around her, the sun kissing her skin, the laughter of children playing nearby, even the chatter of townsfolk unfurling like the petals of a blooming flower. Each sound was a heartbeat, synchronizing with her renewed spirit. Life had become art, embracing both joy and complexity. Weeks later, Emma stood before a crowd again, this time not for an art show, but to speak about her journey. She shared her evolution, describing the exploration of her father's legacy, the embrace of vulnerability, and the importance of confronting fear. The audience was captivated. Her truth resonated with them, sparking recognition within their own struggles. With each word, she felt herself grow stronger, banishing the last remnants of doubt she had harbored. "I've learned that art is not about perfection or mere imitation," she stated, her voice steady, eyes scanning the faces before her. "It's about authenticity. It's a reflection of our journey, our triumphs, and the very challenges that shape us." After her talk, individuals approached her, sharing their stories of hesitation and vulnerability, stories that mirrored her own. The connections she fostered through her honesty enriched her resolve. They reminded her of the profound impact of authenticity. As Emma walked home that evening, a sense of fulfillment enveloped her. She finally felt anchored, not just as her father's daughter, but as Emma, the artist, the storyteller. The paintings lining her walls now depicted both struggle and triumph, blending her father's untold tales with her newly discovered voice. Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. She had conquered the shadows that once lurked, transforming them into sources of light that illuminated her path. Her artwork was not merely a legacy. It was a declaration of her own identity. No longer did she feel like a ghost. She was alive with purpose, filled with confidence and clarity. And that clarity breathed life into her creations, unique, vibrant, and unabashedly true to herself. Stepping into her studio, she picked up her brush once more, prepared to explore the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. She knew that with each stroke, she would continue to push boundaries, explore hidden corners, and celebrate her journey, one where hope would forever intertwine with her art. This was Emma's moment. She had achieved a harmonious balance, proving that reclaiming one's voice is the ultimate act of artistry. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It seriously makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Emma's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support this journey of personal overcoming.